by the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here. Bless each person present. We pray that this meeting is successful and productive. Give us during our discussions and give us wisdom concerning the issues that we face. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call the July 20th, 2021 meeting of Hartville Village Council to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Williams.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Cozy. Here. Green.
Here.
Miller. Here. Sullivan. Here.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Williams.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Cozy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Do we have any citizens' comments on agenda matters only? Okay, we'll move on to the fiscal officer.
You have the minutes from the July 6th meeting. There's no changes. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from July 6th.
Second.
Williams.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Cozy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Miller.
Abstain?
Sullivan.
Yes.
And you have a list of the bills from the June 30th to the July 12th.
Motion to approve the bills.
Second?
I have a question about the Ringer wellspring. Is that ever going to get taken care of?
Second half.
Second half?
Property taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Williams.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Cozy.
Yes.
Green.
No.
Miller.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
So I have
Okay.
bids.
I have a question. Do we know anything about delinquent taxes yet? If we have, how many?
For last year?
Yes.
20?
Yeah.
No, they're still working on it.
And we have the paving bids. Everybody received that information? You want to address those?
So we, for the paving program, received 4 bids, and they range from 242,500 to 284,800. That's on the base bid, and they are from 118,802 to 143,810 on the alternate bid. We reviewed the items and the calculation for each of them, and the apparent lowest bidder, the cargo companies' numbers and the documents that they provided look good.
Have you ever worked with these people?
Personally not, but we seeked out for recommendation from other people who worked with them, and we got good news about them, so.
Do you know the other municipalities where they worked, or?
As I said, myself not, but the construction division, our group, they did, so I can get you some names.
We did have a lot of other projects done on the website, so I was wondering about that too.
Yeah.
I mean, the bid was the lowest, but I didn't see a whole lot of experience, so if you can find a couple other municipalities that could work with, something like that.
When did you have them projected to start?
Right now, we left the schedule flexible, so we can, when we started the whole process, we left it flexible to start basically whenever we award them the project, and they have till the end of September to finish. And that was part of the advertisement, so it's included in the advertisement.
Oh,
how soon will you know that, once we award it, how quickly will they put us on the schedule?
That's up to them, I mean, all they know is they have to be
They
done
have
by
to
the end of
finish.
September.
That's,
We don't have a
Yeah.
start date, we have a
Well,
finish
the
date.
the question, the reason behind that is the school.
correct, but if I remember correctly, when we discussed that, when I was working the schedule, we kind of took that off of our, we did not want to put it there in that, when we had put the bid package together and the
Right.
advertisement, we didn't want to put the limit on the schedule, we did not want to include the schedule, a limitation on the
And
schedule.
I'm not going after that
Yeah.
direction, I'm not going that direction. What I'm saying is the notification to the, so that the school can make appropriate
Right,
changes.
so that basically what happened is that the next step will be after we award the project to them, we come across the, we will have a pre-construction meeting, and that's when they have to submit the schedule, and that's when we share it with the school and everybody here, like the community.
Okay. Okay.
But since we did not have a limitation in the contract, I can't share that information yet because I have no idea.
Is it possible that, for the bid, for the pre-construction meeting, is it possible to invite the school?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that we make sure that they're completely on board. I think we can make a motion to award the contract. today.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think the longer we wait, the longer it's gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, they can only do so much in so much, a lot of time.
So we only have one meeting in August.
I know, September 31st will be here really quick. It's almost July 31st.
Does everybody have any other discussion points? They wanna bring up?
Who provides the, do they pay for the construct to keep the roadway open?
Maintenance of traffic is included in
Okay,
It's a PI on the right now.
okay, because I didn't get that far in here yet.
I can do a motion, and the chair of streets, can you do a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the bills. Recommendation from the CT consultants.
The recommendation is for which one? Carvo,
It was Carvo.
and that includes the alternate?
I believe it should,
Yeah,
I think so too.
at that price.
you got the price right.
So that would be a motion to accept bid of Carlo Companies, Inc. as the lowest and best bid for the base bid of $242,500 with the addition of the alternate bid of $118,802 for a total bid not to exceed $361,302.
I'll second that.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
How's that, Sam?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The only thing I have, we had the architects for the police building at the finance meeting last week and felt it would be a good idea for them to come tonight as well, so. David, you have a small presentation?
Sure. Yes.
I'm Dave Potts, I'm with DS Architecture, I'm the studio director at DS. I am the lead architect responsible for this project. So last week, we just did a brief presentation, and I think the goal of tonight's presentation will be brief again, but kind of just give you a history of our involvement with the project, and then kind of walk you through the project from a very high level, let you know kind of where we were, what we've done, where we are right now, and what the next steps are moving forward. And then if there's any questions, I will field any questions you have the best as I can. So feel free to stop me as we go through. I'm going to run through a few slides just to give you a presentation. But as I was mentioning, so our firm, DS Architecture, we've been involved with this project for quite some time now with the mayor and the chief. We did the facility, the needs assessment on this building, looked at what was here, what we need to do moving forward, and we've done a couple analysis, we've done a couple site analysis for this project. We've done a couple greenfield sites, we've done a couple existing buildings, and we finally landed on this site, which is South Prospect, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. Zoom out a little bit, set stuff down, and walk you through. So what you're looking at right now on the screen is the site plan for the project. Just an overview real quick, the existing, over on the left are some of the existing photos. This is the existing main structure on there. And then there's two pole barns that are also on the site. If you look at the site plan, the way that works, this is the existing structure, the main structure here. This is where the location of the existing pole barn is that we're proposing to tear down. And this is the other existing proposal, the existing pole barn that is proposed as an alternate to be cruiser storage. Cruiser parking, sorry. And then you can kind of see a little bit around the peripheral, we'll be doing new site work, new parking, so that is all, this is the property line here. We've got cruisers coming in. The new structure that we're building basically houses kind of the jail, the sally port, and the storm shelter, and the jail proper. And then down here is more repurposing this building for the administrative functions and the police day-to-day. Any questions on site plan? So basically, where we are in the design development phase right now, we wrapped up design development, where we start with schematic design, where we start at a very high level, we look at the building, we look at the needs, what the program is, we get that set in schematic design, and we start to do block planning and fit plans, basically. Does the program fit in here? How much program do we need to add to the building to make this work? What are those high-level pieces? And then also with schematic design is a analysis of the existing mechanical, electrical, building systems, and with that is a narrative of what needs to happen to improve the building when we're moving forward. That comes with a cost estimate, which I provided and we'll cover in the back. But that first level was done by a cost estimating firm at a schematic level, which is very high, very little detail, but just a general understanding of what we're doing. We give them that general scope. The next piece, which is what we just wrapped up, is design development. And that's where we really start to kind of look at the details of what needs to happen. What do we need to demolish? What is the construction that's going on? A little more in-depth into the systems rather than just a narrative. Start to understand the mechanical, the electrical systems, and start to put things on paper where we can really start to give a better definition of what the project needs to be. And that's the design development phase, which is where we're currently sitting right now. And that's what the latest budget that we're going to show you is. The next step moving forward would be construction documents, and that's where we take basically the concept, the overall development and design, and then we refine it and add all the detail, and we start to look at how all the components go together in the wall system, how the window gets put in. We start to detail out the structure, how we start to readjust some of the structural elements that we need to do, and that gives a complete picture to go out and take that onto the streets and bid it to contractors and get hard numbers, and then you can complete the project. So that's the next step, is bidding, negotiation, and then construction. This is just the site, this is kind of the demo to show you kind of the scope of the existing building. Is a brick and block structure, so it's got some good bones to it, but basically gutting the inside of this for the new program, also removing the windows, and then we've got to bring this facade up to energy code as well. So right now, everyone knows the push is energy efficiency, so when we start doing new projects, there's targets that we have to meet. It's a requirement for the building code. One of those requirements is continuous insulation. So if you think about your insulation in your house, it all goes inside the wall cavities. Every time you hit a stud, you have what we call a thermal bridge, so you can get heat and cold transfer inside of that. Now, what we do is we wrap the entire building with insulation, and that prevents that thermal bridging and also increases the energy efficiency, and that's what we need to do. That is a code requirement. We can't get out of that. So that's one thing with the existing structure. The other piece to this existing structure is this is a business occupancy. It was designed for a business. We are putting in a police station, which is also a business occupancy, but one thing critically different is the type 4 essential facility. So essential facility in the Ohio Building Code is basically hospitals, police stations, fire stations. Anything that needs to stand in an emergency needs to be designed as an essential facility. From an architectural standpoint, that means nothing to me. But from a structural standpoint, when you go to the structural section of the code, it has some big ramifications for what we need to do. We need to make sure that this building is properly structured to stand if in the event of an emergency. What we did is the analysis when we had the structural engineer walk through there, he has identified several key issues. A couple of them are the trusses that frame the roof structure are not properly tied down to the walls, which then ties it to the foundation to keep the wind uplift from taking the roof off in a high storm event. Hurricane clips, things of that nature need to be put onto those trusses. With that, we need to check the top, we need to grout solid the top, it's a CMU wall. Where we make those connections for the trusses, we need to grout that solid with concrete, so it's a solid connection that we make from the truss to the wall. And then also with that kind of, so we're talking about, I'm not gonna get real technical, lateral forces, so moving wind and forces, earthquakes, moving the building side to side, kind of making that movement from side to side. With that, we have shear walls. Brick block walls are great shear walls, but what we need to do in an essential facility is make sure that it meets the proper shear requirement, and some of that is gonna have to be opening up some of the cores of the block in the corner points and adding some reinforcement and grouting that solid. So a little bit of work there. So like I said, type 4 essential facility architecturally doesn't mean anything. Structurally, it's very important. So that's where you see some of that. The other piece that we can talk about, and again, you know, we've got this identified as an alternate. If we're gonna keep this as cruiser storage, we've got it, it's a pole barn. It's got posts into the ground, think about a barn. It's pretty rudimentary in terms of structure. We've also got to bring that up to a type 4 essential facility. This one here, because we need the sally port and the space, this one here is not really gonna get us much to repurpose because we've also got to build a storm shelter in this, so we're gonna tear that one down and show you how we can add on to it. So here's the new floor plan for it. As you can see, kind of this existing structure is getting fit out with all new walls, ceilings, a lot of program going in there. This is the new addition, which is also block brick construction. This area in gray, this is the booking and holding area, but this is also, so two things. This is the storm shelter that we're talking about. This is a code requirement now as well in 2017 OBC. These storm shelters, we do fire stations, police stations, they gotta have a storm shelter in them. It's sized based on the occupancy of the building. There's several other requirements, but the main thing to think about is if a tornado strikes this building and tears this whole building down, this storm shelter has to stand independently. So that's beefed up walls, that's a beefed up foundation. There's a lot of work that goes into that. As a concrete lid, basically this whole thing could collapse and anyone inside of there will be fine. So what we did is double duty. Typically, you know, because this will be a holding facility, this also requires a secure perimeter. So if you have detainees that can't get out, so we will use that. That comes with additional rebar and reinforcing in the walls. So we'll do double duty. We'll make the secure perimeter and the storm shelter and keep that area. So you save a little bit of money in that regards. So we need to have, we also have, because this is going through the state, there's different levels of facilities like this. And this is being designed to the minimum level, which is a temporary holding facility. There's 12-hour facilities, there's full day, you know, there's multiple levels. This is the minimum amount that we're going to design for this facility. Over here is the pole barn that will be kind of almost tearing down and rebuilding. We're going to keep some of it, but are there any, so there's also emergency generators associated with this. Mechanical systems, because we're adding to the building, we're going to have to upgrade the electrical systems. They're obviously not going to be sized for the capacity that we need. Mechanical systems won't be sized for the capacity that we need, so a couple of those components will have to happen. I'm happy to walk through the plan. This has kind of been worked through with the chief and mayor. We've gone through several iterations of this, and I think we've really got it to the point where it works really well for them. We start out and basically just keep trimming the fat down until we get it to where it's a set, basically it works for them. Now, when we did the program and the needs assessment, there was a requirement for more square footage. We couldn't get it, but what we did find out as we started to look is we didn't have to sacrifice any of the important areas. We really looked at kind of the fitness area, the staff briefing room, we squeezed down as much as we could, the locker rooms. So those soft spaces is where we got that square footage down without sacrificing the needs of the department. And just a couple views. So, you know, I showed you a photo. This is the main elevation. This is just a flat if you're standing right in front of it. Really what we're looking to do here is nothing glamorous. We want to make this a nice durable finish because it is a building we want to last forever. We're going to put money into it. We want it to hold up. So really, we're just looking at a cement board panel facade that goes on over top of the existing, as well as because we've got to skin that with insulation and bring the energy values up. And then kind of from a safety and security standpoint, we want natural light. We want these guys to have a nice place, guys and gals, to have a nice place to work. But at the same time, we need to have a safe place to work. So we got to do a little bit of modifications to the exterior to bring that up. Side view, this is basically looking at this view right here. You see the garage door to the Sally Port for police cruisers to come in. This is the rear elevation, just getting some natural light in there. And this is the back side elevation of the Sally Port, so where the cruisers would enter into there. And this is kind of just a general perspective, so you can see what we're looking at. Again, this is design development, so yeah, we go with the materials. Some of this stuff still gets a little bit more tweaking. We'll start to look at how these components interact, and then any final comments that chief or anyone may have, we'll start to integrate those into the construction documents. This is the cruiser storage, so you get a 4-bay cruiser storage. There's not much in there right now. There is a few hard walls in there that we'd be taking down. There's a restroom in there as well. Again, this is identified in the cost estimate as an alternate. One way we can control costs on the project. I think right now it's coming in around $365,000. It's in that breakout for you. I was hoping these would be better to read, so I'm going to zoom in. So in your packet, what you have, this is the latest estimate that was done for us, and this was done by a contractor. We have several contractors in the industry that we reach out to when we need estimates. This gives you kind of this is a bid scenario basically. They sent this out to their subs, so they've got some numbers on it. Again, it's kind of a bidding environment. These are the guys that live and breathe in the bidding environment, so that number is kind of based on low bid, or we don't. Well, I always like to caution, we're going to build in contingencies for estimating design contingencies and all that. We don't want to go in with this number and expect to get this number. It's always a little bit of we want to be around that target. The first schematic design number was done by an estimating agency. So you're going to see a variance right now. From the first time we did the drawings, again, because a level of detail from schematic to design development, traditionally you'll see that number go up some, but right now we're sitting at about 400,000 less. And I would venture to bet if we use the same cost estimating firm, this number would be a little bit higher. But it's nice to have the contractor's input on it because they're the ones that are bidding it. So I think you get more of a street value as to what your project are when you do this kind of estimate. So in that packet, this is their cover sheet that breaks everything down by all the different components. I can zoom into this as well. And then there's backup from all their subs that they bid this out to. But I will zoom in over here and just show you kind of where we are and walk you through this piece. Just to kind of walk you through, what we do at the top is where the total probable construction cost is right now. So everything down here is totaling up to this number. So you're sitting at a construction cost of around $2.6 million right now. This is the trades cost, the actual cost. You got contractor and overhead and profit that's built into that number. General conditions built into that number. That's what it takes to do the job for the contractor. You've got escalation that's built into that. We don't have escalation in this number right now. Design contingency, so the way this works, this design contingency number creeps down as the project develops from schematic to design development to construction documents. This number creeps down because there is less of an unknown from a design standpoint. So architects love to design, and they tend to pad that to protect them from stuff we do. All right, so this number will go down as we go on. Owner's construction contingency, this is a number that, this is a standard industry number. This is what you're going to carry. Because this is an existing building, an existing site, there's stuff in the ground, there's things that come up, you always want to have a construction contingency. This is your coverage for when they put a shovel in the ground and hit a pipe that wasn't on the survey, all right? That costs money, so you always want to carry that. Estimating contingency, again, this is to cover estimating. Just Market conditions are all over the place. Right now, we're super high. Anything you want to build is going to cost you a lot of money. Are those numbers going to flex around? Yes. Are they ever going to come down to where they were? No. But that's to pad the estimated contingency. That's the estimated contingency. So things they missed, or things that may need to get picked up at a later point. Cruiser parking, that's the breakout of the cruiser parking. So you can see we're 331, so it's a little high on that. So below, and again, same thing, number, everything totals up. These are your probable soft costs. So soft costs are anything outside of hard construction, bricks and mortar. So FF&E equipment, anything that's not bolted down or fixed to the building is FF&E and equipment. We're carrying allowance right now for that. Plan reviews, we carry an allowance for plan reviews. We've got to get we've got to get all these reviews in place through the state and so forth. Reimbursable allowance, this is miscellaneous. This is for the cost of printing drawings or different various things of that nature. Survey, which has already been complete. This is to get out, do the survey work. They'll look at the site, give us a survey drawing. Asbestos, hazardous demo, audio visual, security, phones. Those are included up above. We clearly noted that. Special inspections and testing. Design fees, this is for us to complete the project. This is actually total design fees for the project. Civil design fees, specialty consultants. All of that totals down to this bottom number, which is your total probable project cost. So your project cost, $2.9 million. Are there any questions on the breakdown of that? I'm sure there's lots of questions on the cost, but, and I can scroll over maybe and give you this variance, or scroll out so you can see the variance. But, so good news is the numbers have gone down, which is good. And I think we had a solid design development set. It's sitting there. It's a pretty thick, they gave them a pretty good idea of what needs to happen. So I wouldn't expect, that design contingency, I wouldn't expect us to eat into that cost. That's really, that money goes back to you once the CDs are done, so. Can I field any questions, or is there anything I can help out with? Hopefully I clearly laid out. So I know there were some comments on, hey, can't we just put this into, can't we just move the police into that building? And yes, you can 100% do that if you're not gonna go through the proper procedures. And it's a temporary thing. Move them in there and let them go. But if you wanna do it right, this is what it's gonna cost, and this is the way it has to go. We have to go through regulations anytime, we're stamping drawings, we're on the hook for it. So I always point to, Miami now is a great example of, find all these deficiencies in the building, we'll get to it, we'll take care of it. Something catastrophic happens, now you're on the hook for that. Same thing, you can move them in temporarily, tornado hits, wipes out your police force, you're in chaos. So think about that. Will it solve the problem here? Absolutely, it will make this condition, this is an unsafe condition here that you have right now. You'll get them out of here, that's a step in the right direction. But ultimately, it's gonna cost you, at one point, you need to do this work. So I'm hopefully clarifying where that cost comes in. If you can, I had a conversation, if you can find an architect that can get you into that building, he either doesn't understand the typology of what we're doing, so the building that he's putting in, there's lots of architects out there, we do this is one of our core competencies. So right now, we're sitting as the owner's rep on the Cleveland Police Headquarters. We've done Brimfield, we've done Kent, this is one of the key studios in our firm. So that architect may not understand the typology, or he's just willfully negligent, and he probably should not be stamping drawings. So that's the only way I can see you getting into that building without going through this process. So I hope that helps clarify a few things. And I'm open to any questions you may have.
Well, this is a long-term plan. This is 30, 40, 50 years.
This is a long-term plan.
This is not a temporary fix. We don't want another temporary fix.
Correct.
What we have now is a temporary fix that's lasted for 30 years.
Agreed. So think about, I'm not advocating for moving into that building without doing this. We 100% recommend doing this project. Yes, we have some skin in the game because it's a project for us, but for your best interest, even if you moved them in there, now when you go to do that project, now you got to come up with a you got to get them out of there to do that project. So now the costs start to even that. You're going to pay more, and the longer you wait, the cost just goes up as well. So now that's my take. Paying for it I know is a real thing. There's probably questions on that, but I don't know if I can answer those. But I'm sure any other construction questions I
Your
will
next
field.
steps.
our next steps. So right now, like I said, we're in design development. We would like to get released into construction documents, and what that does is we finish the document set, it's ready to go, it's ready to be built, and that allows you to bid it out and see what this cost is. If at that time it comes in at 6 million, which I don't think it would, and you decide, hey, I don't want to do the project, you can put that project on the shelf and you can wait for another year. I mean, those are your documents, it's done, and it's ready to be bid at any time. You want to pull it off, there'd be a little bit of kind of just updating some things, but it's done and you have a good understanding of what that project is. And that's what we'd like to get through the construction document phase. Then you can bid it, see where you're at. I think that's what Scott, I know we've given Scott our fee proposal to get through there, and that's what we're looking for, to move on.
Can you break this down into different areas? Like the Sally Port costs this much, the gym costs this much, the shelter costs this much.
To some extent, we can do that. That takes, we can do that for a cost, for sure. But there are certain things, so like the Sallyport mechanical and electrical is for the whole build. So really to try to break it out from mechanical electrical just for the Sallyport is hard to do. I could break out, hey, the storm shelter is gonna cost you X amount of money. That's what's costing that money. The Sallyport construction, the building of the shell costs X amount of money. We can do that, but once we start splitting, like the mechanical systems is gonna serve the building and the Sallyport, then it's hard because, I can't break that. There's no way to extrapolate that number for you. We can do like a scientific guess on it and say, all right, well, if we didn't do the Sallyport, we would put this size, we would need this ton unit in for a mechanical system, and that would save you X amount. But I don't know, I mean, without the Sallyport, I don't know if you have the Sallyport's got your holding and all of that. So it's really to carve off the Sallyport, you don't have a project at that point because it's not feasible from a square footage and program. We don't have a place to put that program. I can't cram it into the existing building. So with the alternate of this cruiser storage is a good one. And we did break that cost off because you can wait and do cruiser storage at a different time. So that's why we broke that cost off. But I don't think you can break apart the Sallyport and storm shelter from that building and still have a project. You can't do the project without it because it just doesn't work from your program and your needs. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. We can do it for sure. I mean, but it gets a little hard.
So Scott, the appropriations that you're asking for the building fund itself, that covers the fee for him?
The architectural fees for the construction documents and bidding,
And bidding?
and the bidding, and any extra fees.
See, and I think in that number, we have another cost estimate rolled into it. So if you wanted to take our bidding and hold that fee off and not bid this, but if you want to just finish the documents and get a construction estimate, you can do that and see where your project's at. We did give them a number for construction estimate. Bidding can happen at a separate stage as well, so.
Yeah, because the issue I have is that I'm okay with the idea of getting your documents all together. The problem is that we don't have a way of paying for the project yet, so why bother to bid it out? We don't do the same thing with streets. We make sure we have the funds available for streets before we actually go through the bid specs and then push the bid out.
The only value to bidding it out is you get this is always an estimate. You don't really know the true street value. So
Right.
bidding it out gives you the actual cost of the project.
And I understand that. We do the same thing with the streets. We have an estimated cost on streets. We develop, basically, we save up the funds, and once we reach that
Threshold, what you're
that
comfortable with.
threshold, we give the engineer the okay to go ahead and put a bid package together and bid it out. The same thing, I put the same steps together here. We're working on the loan application, which I'm assuming you're gonna give an update on that, if there is any. But you know, without the, you know, the loan application is fine. At this point in time, I look at it and say, we don't have the money for the payments. So we have, in the proposal, on the agenda tonight is an additional tax increase to come up with those payments. But until we come to that final step, knowing what our payments, knowing that we can make those payments, I don't see a reason to bid it out. Now, putting together the documents, you said yourself, we can put the documents together and set them on the shelf and just hold them for another, you know, few months.
Well, I have demonstrated we had the ability to pay for the debt. It's just a question of how much debt we incur. So we had ranges there that with the existing operations, money coming in, that we could pay for the debt.
Okay?
But depending on what project comes in, you know, we're 3.5, right, we may not be able to do it.
I will say
Six.
from Scott's, just to save him some heartburn of kind of the back. If you approve you can approve our fee all the way through construction. We're only gonna bill you for the work we've done. And if, you know, so if you don't wanna keep coming back, you know, every time, okay, let's do it and keep coming back, I mean, that's your process and I'll respect that either way, but just so you know, we're not gonna bill you for, if you approve it, we're not billing for anything we don't do, so.
Because the document you provided a month or so ago didn't show that we were able to make the payment.
I don't recall such document
Okay.
showing that we could make the payment.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is find the cost,
Right.
So we know what the payment is.
so we can determine what our payment will be, and then look at how we're set up to do it.
Correct. Even if we look at this as an estimate. Okay.
How long does it take to get the next set of documents?
So right now, we've got 10 weeks to get through construction documents.
Okay.
And I mean, industry's busy right now, so we're gonna do our best to push through that. 10 weeks. And then we plugged 10 weeks for that, and then we plugged in 10 weeks to bid, so then you would know what your true cost was. And then you're looking at like 9 months of construction, you know. This is an end of 2022 project. If
So
everything
we're
just
still far out.
falls in place.
Okay.
Any other questions for me? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Scott, you won't be offended if I duck out?
No.
Perfect, all right.
Just, Scott, just out of curiosity, you indicated you provided Scott the numbers just to get the documents together.
We gave him all the way through bidding. We gave him all the way through bidding and negotiation.
Through bidding.
I said,
Up
to be honest
to
with you,
bidding?
Scott, did I give you a proposal for construction administration as well?
I believe we have a cost for construction.
We do, yeah, you have the cost, I don't know.
But not in this.
Yeah, yes, he's got our fees to complete the entire project, but yeah, whatever's in there, he's got, just better speak to, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any old business? We'll move on to the law director.
Okay, thank you. First item we have this evening is a second reading. Resolution number 2-21.15, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement between the village of Hartville and Modern Vintage LLC and Ohio Limited Liability Company to provide for the village's use of the premises of the lesser for public parking purposes and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Yes. I wanted to know how you felt since the last meeting.
So, looking it over, I mean, I weigh this on both sides. So the first is that we do require parking, period. There is no question about that. Throughout the years, we should have been doing a better job of maintaining that parking lot instead of letting it go as far as it has. So, from the idea of required parking, from the idea just public parking, from that idea, I don't like the idea of setting any kind of precedence on, if we get involved in a contract, we're going to do all this extra work. I don't like, it's on a case-by-case basis, and I have to remember to keep it that way. The thing I don't like is a 20 years. I don't like going after this for a 20-year period. If we could, I'd like to reduce it to a 10-year period and then review it after 10 years.
The only reason we did the 20 is because of the cost.
Yep, and I understand that piece of it.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean, it's up to you as council. I mean, are you proposing still doing the extent of the repair?
I
Giving
believe that,
yourself less term? I mean, because that's kind of taking money out of it.
I understand that piece of it, the
I guess you could look at it that
Over
we're
the
paying for
years.
something we haven't done in the past.
well, I look at it and say exactly that. We're paying for something we should have been doing and we didn't do. And then we use it for a 10-year period, where if it's a 10-year period we agree on, then after 10 years, we review it again and see what changes. 20 years is a long time, and there's a lot of changes that could take place inside of a 20-year period.
What you want? So you want just a 10-year period with, I mean, with an option for the village for another 10?
I would appreciate that, yes. Because there is no, I didn't read in there, there's no cancellation clause.
It's just, no, I mean, it was
No.
guaranteed 20-year lease,
Right.
because that's generally favorable for us.
Yeah, but in the condition in which we are paying for the maintenance for the next 20 years, we could end up having to repave it again within that 20 years.
Depending on what it looks like in 10 years, you may not want to keep it.
Exactly. So after 10 years, we reevaluate. If the conditions are favorable for us to continue, then we can continue. If they're not, then, and again, it's looking at the surroundings.
You could do a 10-year and 2 5-year options.
But is our need for public parking gonna be less than 10 years?
No.
But the need for public parking doesn't change, but what can happen is any one of these facilities around here could be removed.
I was gonna say Ernie's building could be torn down and that could be a parking lot.
Exactly. Something could change with any of the buildings around here, and we end up with, we end up with available parking in another location.
What's average paving last on a parking lot?
I'd imagine longer than the streets.
I mean, we talk, asphalt, we talk about like about 10 years, and still after even the first, we're talking about, you have to maintain for the 10 years.
So 10 years, 2 years ago.
So 10 years would be good if you maintain it through the 10 years, and after that, you might need to do a good work on it. But it depends again on what you're using in that parking lot. Do they have delivery truck, large trucks, do they have just small cars? But usually, like we're talking about 10 years, you should be good if you're doing the power sealing and all that stuff.
It might have been said before, does anybody remember when the last time that was even paved? Like, when it looked nice before it does now? So long before anybody here?
We actually, Nate and I looked up on the auditor's website, because he did just some simple striping over there, and 2006 was the latest that we could see enough striping, just striping, to even get an idea of how to stripe it over there. Much less any paving or anything.
You could see it hadn't been paved for a long time.
Yeah.
And again, you know, like for paving, when we say 10 years, that doesn't mean like after 10 years, you're just gonna go on gravel. It's just 10 years basically in good condition.
Hey, Sam, when you're talking about a parking lot as well, you're talking about we could coat that thing and keep it, also help it to last longer as well. Whereas the road, you don't do that. Am I correct on that?
In general, with any asphalt, the more you are maintaining it, the better it is.
Right.
Because you're adding life to it. The more you ignore it, basically you're lessening the life expectancy of that, whatever it is, if it's a road or a parking lot. The main difference between a parking lot and a roadway, the roadway section has more traffic, but it has a better section. The parking lot, it depends what kind of pavement we use. Sometimes it's really thin section, so that's why it doesn't last for too long. Especially if you have delivery trucks on it, turning wheels in the same spot or staying in the same spot for too long. That's the main difference between like cars, roadways and parking lots. So parking lot has less traffic usually, but it's a thinner section.
And even, I've been here 33 years, I don't remember us ever sealing that as well. So, yeah, we really didn't do anything to it, besides patching when we got holes.
With the expected contract then, be that we would continue maintaining the parking lot as rent, or?
Well, we would pay a monthly rental fee, but we also would still have the obligation to maintain during the period of tenancy.
For 10 years, after that 10 years.
So when you write,
Does anybody have an idea what the annual maintenance would be? How much we were talking
And we're talking about like sealing, stuff like that, because you have sealing, if you put a full seal layer and then you have to restripe it again.
Is that something you have to do every year though?
No, not every year, but, like the first year, you're not gonna put anything on it. And then the second year, you might need some, but say every other year. And like 50 cents to $1 square foot, maximum, shouldn't be even that. It's just, it depends on the size of the parking lot, it depends on that.
Okay. Plus that stuff we do anyway, right? I mean, like, our street department would seal that, right, and stuff like that, so, correct?
We probably can seal it, but
We
striping's
wouldn't wanna-
another, yeah.
We wouldn't want to seal it either. It
No.
would take us forever to do.
Weren't you guys just over there putting stripes, oh, you're fixing holes, never mind.
We can patch it.
I did hear somebody saying, sorry, the patch stuff that you're using, they love it.
Yeah.
So, I got that today, actually, right before the meeting.
So I'll start with the idea of making a motion that we reduce it to a 10-year period renewable for
fives.
2-5.
Any second?
Yes.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
So now you're just voting on
Yep.
the resolution,
Yeah.
the amendment for the lease as a second reading.
And we already have a motion and a second for them.
Yeah. So just vote.
We need to
Roll call.
roll call for the second reading.
Just a second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
You want to wait till the next council meeting and see that lease?
Yes, please.
And I'll make sure it's here. She's-
Yeah, let's make sure. And then the only thing I want to say about this, at the next council meeting, council, if you do indeed pass that lease resolution, then you'll also have to pass authorization to enter into the contract. So if you haven't looked at the contracts that were circulated, you should probably do that as well. Okay, thank you. Next item is a second reading of ordinance number 1-21.12, amending ordinance 1-21.08 and all previous salary and wage ordinances, fixing the salaries and wages of all elected officials and employees of the village pursuant to the revised code 731.13 and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
We're doing emergency clause. Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second by Miller. Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Motion to pass by emergency and take effect immediately.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item is first reading of ordinance number 1-21.13, amending the annual appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the village for the fiscal year ending December 31st, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. The question is on this, the bidding process. Do we, ask the question again. Do we know what that dollar amount is? Currently, the appropriations for $110,000 to go into the building fund.
Was understandable.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was like $7,000 or so to bid the project.
Okay, so we put the money into the building fund. We still control when it goes out to bid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just, he's gonna do the construction documents.
Yeah.
Point, then the next step is to bid.
Right.
So clarify, we're putting the money there, but we're not approving the bidding yet.
Correct.
They come to us after every step.
I'm sure everybody understands.
And of course, I sent out an amendment today for the appropriations. I removed the wastewater treatment plant appropriations because in their bidding process, the engineers discovered that one of the bids was not proper. And everything was over the engineer's estimate. So we would have to rebid it to do the project, so I just removed the appropriations.
Okay.
I had a motion made by Miller, seconded by Reese. Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to pass by emergency and take effect immediately?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. Next item is first reading of ordinance number 1-21.14. An ordinance pursuant to revised code section 71804, declaring it necessary to provide for an additional 0.5% income tax to be levied for the purpose of generating additional revenue to be allocated to the police department in the village of Hartville, and directing the Board of Elections to conduct an election and declaring the same to be an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? So, just for clarification, this Finance Committee proposed this, and actually the chief brought it up for the 0.5% to go to the police department itself, the operations, including the building itself. So that's why we're directing this to towards the police department as a levy itself. There's one more point I wanted to make.
This is not for 5 years, though, it's continuing,
This is a continual, this is a
so
permanent.
forever.
It's a permanent.
So Hartville's tax will be 1.5%, 1%.
Correct.
Any discussion on this?
During the finance committee, the chief suggested that the officers had probably the best ability to promote this. Correct in saying that?
I think that there was two things. If you look at all the history of the taxes that were tried, the most successful one was one that was split between streets and police. It was the closest to passage. I think that if you put that all at our doorstep, we can create a campaign and make the effort to get it passed. I know that we're willing to try. So, and I know that generating 0.5%, even though it's earmarked for the police department, is going to float all the boats in the village. It's going to make every department better. It's going to allow us to pave and have that facility. And I don't know, but I don't think that there's a way to do it between now and November, short of, using the passionate plea of support your police.
Further discussion? That motion made by Miller, seconded by Reese. Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to pass by emergency and take effect immediately?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
And then finally, the last one is resolution number 2-21.16, and this as council will recall, it's essentially the same as the ordinance that was passed. The law requires us to pass both an ordinance and a resolution. So this is resolution number 2-21.16, a resolution pursuant to revised code section 71804, declaring it necessary to provide for an additional 0.5% income tax to be levied for the purpose of generating additional revenue to be allocated for the police department in the village of Hartville, and directing the Board of Elections to conduct an election and declaring the same to be an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion to pass by emergency and take effect immediately?
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Cozy?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, that's all I
Thank
have.
you. We'll move on to the engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to the bid results, I only have the Danbury Glen update, which the street department started on the catch basin today. So that's the good news. So hopefully,
A long process.
yeah, so we're getting there. That's it.
Thank you. Any requests from council members?
It's more for streets, I guess, but I was curious on Nate how that was holding up after 2 weeks, if you noticed any problems, or is it pretty good?
I mean, what we did there with the mastic one, it's holding real well, and I haven't seen any tracking at all. So, yeah, so far, I mean,
Just wanted a quick update.
yeah, so far I've been pleased with it. You know, I mean, we only did a
Small amount.
small amount, but yeah, I was pretty pleased and it seems to be holding up well. It's a short time we're gonna see, but yeah, so far so good.
We'll move on to reports of committees, Commerce Development, Finance.
Finance held a meeting on July 13th. The discussion points were the police building, which we covered, the street paving, which the bids themselves, which we also covered, and the proposed income tax levy, which we also covered. So, Scott, do you request a finance meeting between now and next?
Not this time, thanks.
Does any of the members request? We'll hold off having.
Okay. Personnel.
Just to update, if, the committee members, and if you can start getting stuff to me, I'd like to have our first meeting, I'd like to schedule it our first meeting in September. So if I can have it by the end of August, just to see what we're missing, what we still need to do, that would be great. Either email or drop it in my box, and I'll get it. That's it.
Planning.
Planning held a meeting on July 13th. The discussion, the agenda was a replat request for lot number 2 of John Tessman's properties. This is a unique replat because there was a common well system and an easement and an ingress that had to be worked out. And I'm gonna actually ask Ron if he remembers the discussion around it, because it required some changes to be added to the title as well as the replat itself.
Yeah, so we had discussions because they do allow, the health department does allow separate parcels to have like a small water well system design, which is what this is. They each have their own sewer, but they would, the 4 parcels would share a well system for the moment. And Mr. Brumpson had added to the plat, the replat, language that would satisfy me that it would be recorded in the plat to give notice to a future buyer or future owner that they were subject to this common well system. In addition, we had talked about, and they had agreed that they would also add deed language to the property so that any future buyer would know of the maintenance requirements and the fact that there would be this access required by adjoining property owners to ensure that the well was always functional. So with those two items, otherwise I didn't have any objection, so as future property owners would be well aware of that. And then, of course, there is eventually there might be a public water system that would make all this move.
Right.
So with all the documentation that was required or requested by the solicitor into the replat document and the deed documents themselves, there were no actual issues with any of the commission members, the engineer, the zoning inspector. So it came down to the motion was actually to present to council the approval of the replat request and to add additional language with, to the well commitment and the access agreement, and the fact that the owner will redeed all of the properties to make sure that the obligations are contained in the deed. And we made that as a motion to present, and I make a motion that we approve that, as I stated the language.
I was waiting for the pause.
Yeah, sorry. It was a long request, so.
That was the well, and what was the other?
I will,
Access, one property has to provide access.
I will make sure you get the notice.
Okay. We have a motion made by Sullivan, do we have a second?
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes. There is a meeting scheduled for August 10th. I believe it's August 10th.
It is.
And there are two items on there. One of them, and I'm gonna ask the engineer and the solicitor to chime in on this. It's about one of the requests is to review the lighting requirements within an area. And it's my understanding that the lighting requirements are governed by the state, by Ohio Revised Code, and would require an electrical engineer to review those.
So my recommendation, because they are introducing a sidewalk and they want to install light poles there, that there are certain criteria for the amount of lights or how many, like the engineer usually designing those or doing the layout for those will do a photometric layout. And my recommendation that basically the village will receive a copy of that one, just to make sure that they are designed and installed properly. But I will refer to.
And then from your point of view, so from the solicitor's point of view on this, from the engineer's point of view, it requires an electrical engineer to review it. Does the planning commission actually need to review this?
We do have, in our zoning book, we do have requirements about lighting.
Okay,
So,
so,
I mean, we should, is this for the condos or for the single family homes?
this would be for the property on the north side.
The condos.
The condos.
So they probably will get a design plan prepared by Ohio Edison.
Okay.
Is that what they have suggested?
So they keep asking me and asking on behalf of the village to start to give them the criteria. So you should, my understanding is the other way around. They need to give us just.
In the past, when we've done developments, Ohio Edison has designed them, and then they come to the engineer for review, whether it's Danbury or Cornerstone, and that's usually what happens.
And usually as an engineer, I will be looking for basically a professional stand.
Right.
That they're designed properly.
I know I think his name's Clevenger, Earl Clevenger, I think is the person from Ohio Edison who's prepares.
I just want to make sure when he finally gets to planning commission, we're actually reviewing something that we can.
That we have something to review.
Yeah, well, there's two items on the agenda, so one's a final, one is a final document, and then the second one is this lighting district, and I'm just that I want to make sure when it finally gets to planning, we are the last step in that process.
And just to follow up on the solicitor clarification that there is a language on the zoning book. The only thing is, I think the question is not just about if we need lighting or not. I think they're more looking for there is a style requirement, type of fixture, and we don't have that. And I looked through
We don't have an official policy. However, all the street lights in Cornerstone and Danbury are going of the same caliber.
Each allotment
Yes.
should match,
Right.
and I'm sure they want that too. Are you going to talk to them, or should I have Cheryl contact them and tell them to get Ohio Edison on it? Okay, I'll let her know. All set?
That's it for planning.
Okay. Parks and Recreation?
Still waiting on the playground, so nothing new, right?
No, they did take all the old stuff out, and the guys kind of cleaned that, so the little bit is left there, the kids can play on, but we're still looking at September 7th as the delivery day. Safety,
Nothing at this time.
sewer rates,
Nothing?
and street and drainage, nothing. Okay, any miscellaneous business? Any citizens' comments not on agenda items? If you'll come up to the podium and give your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Archie Bradford. I live at 1200 Royce Street, Northwest Uniontown. And I wish this was on different terms here, but I had an interaction, unfortunate interaction, with two of your police officers. Lieutenant Kevin Moore and an Officer Higgins. During the big barn fire we had over in Uniontown. And earlier in the day, I had spoken with your lieutenant. A fireman called him up there because he didn't like when I voiced concerns at the speed of the fire trucks were coming in and out of my street. So he called up. Me and Lieutenant Moore, we had a not so great conversation. Not proud of it, but we've had a lot of trouble with speeding up and down there, and I understand there was a fire. But the barn, the walls were all completely done. All they were doing was putting water on it. It was in a brick wall. It was contained. They were driving excessively fast up and down there, from up at the barn down to the fire hydrant. And all I asked is that they slow down. When I talked to that guy, he brought the lieutenant up. I talked to him. Me and him had words. That was done. I went back to where they were hooking the tankers up. I asked them to slow them down. In which they did, okay? They did slow them down. And then later in the day, I went down where they were filling up the tankers. I was videotaping them. I did not make one contact with one firefighter at all. I made no contact with anybody until the fire chief of Hartville come up to me, and he shook my hand. He told me who he was, and he asked me what he could do to make me happy today. I said, "You did. You slowed down your tankers." That fire's still burning up there today. They didn't get it put out. They've dumped thousands of gallons on it, and it's still burning today. But the action of Officer Higgins is what I want to speak about right now. I was talking to the chief. He came up behind me. He was standing behind me. He heard us having a conversation. I did not go to the chief. Chief came to me. We were having just a conversation, 2 minutes. And then he slipped away. 2 Stark County Sheriff deputies came up. And what that officer told those two officers that I was doing, triggered them off. They came at me very aggressively. Their voices were up, and their body language said they wanted to do harm to me. And I have a video here that it shows exactly what that officer said. And I'm gonna tell you, you know, when those two deputies came up, that officer shut his camera off for 3 minutes. And in that 3 minutes, what he stated to those two deputies triggered them to come at me. And he asked them to he said that they want me removed. For one thing, I have a First Amendment right to videotape what I want. I was not in their ways. I was 10 feet away from them at least. That's what I did. I never spoke a word to them until they spoke to me. And the language that is used by Officer Higgins, you know, that is uncalled for. And it was a blatant lie. And I never said that to any one of those, and they can't find one that I said it to, because it didn't happen. And my neighbor also came over and talked to the lieutenant, and she even backed me up on the speed that was happening. There was children along that road. You know, that type of thing brings out everybody. I was up there, I cleared it all out so they could get their tankers in and out, because nobody would come up and relieve me, you know, so I could keep that open up. There was gawkers coming in there by the thousands, it seemed like. Every time I turned around, I had to send somebody out to clear that out. But, you know, the firefighters were standing up there, leaning up against the trucks. Nothing was being done, you know, to help me, and I finally just gave up. You know? And all I wanted was a video of all the fire departments who were in there, so I could go around the next day and talk to them about my concerns, which I did. Greentown, Uniontown, Hartville, I called him. Well, I went there, he was out on the call. He called me back. Plain Township called me back. And you know, there's no sense in this. And me having an interaction with Hartville Police in Uniontown, you know, but it just, I've never had any trouble with any officer. I know officers in Akron, Canton, in Cuyahoga Falls. I know officers and I know what they go through. But to them to treat me like that, you know, and the possibility of me having bodily harm on me. Luckily that day I didn't have my firearm on me. I do carry. You know, they could have all gone wrong. Weird stuff could have happened. Not on purpose, but because of one officer. And, you know, I just want people to understand that we're trying to make everything right. And you know, that doesn't show integrity to me. It doesn't show, you know, clarity about, you know, the division between cops and citizens. I mean, that's just wrong. And I was brought up, when wrong is seen, you do something about it. And I felt that you people need to hear this. You know, when I had several conversations with the chief, and I got the feeling that I was wasting his time. Because he stated that, you know, that was all right for that officer to turn his camera off. I mean, that tells me about a man's character and his integrity. I mean, look, you know, if I had I ran out of battery or my phone would have died. My phone died and I couldn't videotape the rest of this. But luckily, the two Stark County officers, deputies, had their cameras on. They didn't turn them off. And I got videotape of what he said to them. And that he said that they want me removed. Now I have reached out to my counsel, okay? And once he gets all the information, I will see what I'm going to do from there. But, you know, I've never seen an officer do that to anybody in my life. I'm almost 60 years old. Even as a kid, I knew officers. And I just want you all to hear that. I think it needed to be heard. But that's my feelings. And if you want to, I can show you the video.
This is just for speaking, you can't watch video.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Mr. Bradford,
Yes.
I appreciate your concerns and I thank you for bringing this up to us.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Williams,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Cozy,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Yeah.